I'm Tracy Koga with something short and fun. This is a Hue Soundbite. I am really getting used to this now, of having a real human being here, and we're safe distance, right, Sean?
That's right, yeah.
6 feet, whatever. It is so good to finally see you in person. Sean Miller, Executive Director for Peer Connections Manitoba. And Sean, this week has been dedicated to Mental Illness Week, but I want to talk about that whole, connotation of mental illness and what it really means to your organization, Peer Connections Manitoba.
Great to be here. Great to see you in person. You know, we all have a lower half to our bodies, I'm discovering, right? It's
I know.
Not just the top half. Yeah, this week is definitely Mental Illness Awareness Week. And what it means to our organization, first of all, just talking about mental illness, it's important. I think what I've seen over the last little while is mental illness awareness has definitely increased. But one of the challenges that I've seen, I've observed, and the reason that I'm doing the work that I'm doing, is that while awareness has increased, available supports hasn't quite gotten to the same level. So there's a great disparity between supply and demand, if we could use a commodified word for that. So for our organization, what that means is that we've focused on mental health challenges. So diagnosis isn't ultra important for us, but we recognize that there's such a big need in our province to serve people. And we were formerly the Manitoba Schizophrenia Society, serving 1% of the population. And so we've changed our name now to Peer Connections Manitoba because we want to throw our doors open so much wider. There's a number of factors that have impacted overall mental health of the population. And so to meet that demand, we've made some significant changes in our focus, in our name, and direction of the organization.
So let's talk about those quickly, because I know that we have a very active chat room that's waiting to get in.
Sure.
Just at the top of your head, Sean, what are you most proud of, and what do you find is most significant that people should know about your organization during this week of mental illness awareness?
Well, something that's really, really important is that we all have mental health, and there are life factors that impact our mental health. And so we have a team of clinically integrated community supports, trained, formalized peer support that focus. And this is the thing that I'm most proud of, and that is that they are skilled in connecting with people through shared experience. So everybody on our team comes to the table with lived experience and are able to connect with other people just through that. So that it's a very real conversation. We're not afraid to go and have those difficult conversations with people.
And what do you see the most important to address? Whether it is maybe not in this week and looking forward to the week after, the month after, the year after, a decade from now?
The most important things for us to address. I would say that it really is about going back again to that theme of connection, that, we really try to normalize the experience, that we don't necessarily need to have the same diagnostic information in common, but just rather what is it for the individual in the moment that they need, right? We're not case managers. We don't set up like care plans. It's just really about addressing what people need in the moment. And we're here for both the people that are experiencing mental health challenges directly or indirectly, so family members. There's very few supports available for family members that are going through health challenges.
And that is so important. And now, we're still in this, I want to call it quasi-pandemic. And, and this has really exacerbated, too, the mental health and stress on people. What have you seen, how Peer Connections has been able to pivot and help this new section of people that are coming in with health issues, mental health issues?
Well, one of the biggest things that has really increased is people's, there's a lot more people in crisis now. And so we take the support. Traditional model is to sit in an office or sit in a clinical setting and wait for people to come to you. So we try to go to the places where people are and bring the support to where people are at. So we meet people where they are at. So pivoting in that way, being in the place where they're in crisis, and then able to walk them, having the ability to walk them from the crisis back into the community, and then support them in the community as well. And that's really where that's where we live, work, play. That's where recovery happens, is in the community, right? That's where we live our lives. So.
Well, you know what? This conversation is going to continue, but it is such a fabulous segue to open up our chat room. We've got some amazing guests. You know, thank you, returning the superstar, Robyn Priest, and her cohorts, Kirsten Drybough and Charlotte Sytnyk. It's so lovely to see you. But I'm actually going to put a pause on you three, because I know, there's a lot to say. I'm going to give it to a new all-star, Carly from Meraki Theatre, who, as of all of this week, this organization has been providing free workshops in the arts and knowing how the arts mean so much for mental health. So Carly, take it away. Congratulations to you and Taylor. This is an amazing thing. Tell us more about Meraki Theatre and I guess the whole impetus and idea of what you're doing this week.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. This is amazing. So basically Meraki is a local independent theater company. We started out doing shows mostly during Pride Week in Manitoba to support the LGBTQ plus community. And we've sort of taken a big pivot during the pandemic towards more and more youth programming. Our founder, Taylor, is a teacher first and foremost, and she found really big love in drama teaching for her kids at school. So we turned it into Meraki Theatre youth programming, and through that, and actually through the unfortunate loss of one of Taylor's students due to some mental illness earlier this year, we were inspired to put on an event that brings together, in partnership with Mood Disorders Manitoba, mental health resources as well as free arts programming for kids ages 9 to 16.
Oh, that's amazing. Just briefly tell us about, I guess, some of the highlights of these workshops that you're going to be doing this week.
Yeah, for sure. So we kicked it off yesterday with a musical theater workshop, and some of the other things that can be looked forward to this week for the kids is there's a beading workshop tomorrow, a songwriting workshop coming up, there's some French theater that's going to be happening, and there's also a mindfulness day with Keith McPherson. So they're going to be learning all kinds of stuff, and all throughout the week, Mood Disorders is going to be there providing resources for parents, and they're going to be doing little mindfulness art drawing workshop kind of things while the kids are waiting to go into their programming.
Oh, it's so fabulous. Do you think that this night might be like something that Meraki will continue on, though, throughout?
I think it will be, yeah. We've already seen such an amazing turnout just in the one day and tonight that we are hoping really that this can become an annual week. And our youth programming absolutely isn't going anywhere either. We love hosting youth camps throughout the year. We did something earlier this year called Project Play, where the kids got to work in a collaborative environment and actually write a play and perform it over Zoom together. So that was lots of fun for them. And we're really passionate about providing that environment for kids to grow and exercise their creative muscles.
Well, I know lastly, because I know you have to go, Sunday is World Mental Health Day, and thinking about the youth and thinking about maybe what you and Taylor want to build with Meraki, what would be the message that you would like to share with everyone?
I think that really what the team is trying to do is nurture compassion, create change, and empower youth. We want to provide them with resources as well as a safe space to be creative because in my opinion, it's never too early to know that you have resources and that you're not alone.
Oh, well, Carly, thank you so much for coming. And I know that I want to have Taylor be, be sitting in the same seat that Sean is to really talk more about this theater. And I think there's a lot of collaborative minds here that I think more programming and inventive events will happen. So thank you so much, Carly, and good luck for the week.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. So just a little taste of what's happening during this week. Okay, Robyn, what have you been up to lately?
That's a little scary, isn't it? A scarier question. Actually, I've been having a bit of fun at the moment. I am preparing a webinar that is being delivered in Australia, but is also available here, and it's about human rights, and human rights as someone with mental health issues, and talking about why we want to keep standing up and talking about like self-determination and people getting supported to actually look at what's happening for them and work out how to get through it without necessarily just being here, take this medication or take this. Now, I want to be super clear. I'm not anti or pro medication or treatment. I'm completely pro informed choice. And that's part of the whole discussion about human rights, that we as people with our own lived experience of mental health issues actually get to have a say in what happens with us. So I'm super excited about that. I've been, running more peer training, like getting more peer supporters out there in the world. And I was just listening to Sean before about, there's more awareness, and there is, and I think we need to just keep talking about it. Normalize the feelings, normalize even those tough feelings, like normalize the conversation about suicide, normalize the conversation about I'm struggling with stuff, so that people don't hide it, but we talk about it as a community. And Sean was also saying, the resources haven't necessarily grown with the demand. I have a respectful challenge to the world. Oh, I'm cautious about this. I don't always think it's about more money. Sometimes I think it's about looking at services and are they actually working as well as they could, or are there some services that have just been around forever and we keep funding the same old, same old? I had a conversation last week with someone that works for Manitoba government about why don't we have peer support, people who have their own experience, and also family peer support when people go on waiting lists. I'll bet my business. Oh, Charlotte's like, no, but I will bet my business if we put like peer support into wait lists, actually there won't be as many people ending up in services. I didn't really bet our business, Charlotte. I take that back.
You want to comment on that, Sean?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I may have used the word resources. I use resources and services interchangeably. So yeah, the dollar signs were definitely not what was going through my mind. But I totally agree. The services and supports are something that we need to ramp up, and we need to match with the awareness, because people and the coordination, right? The coordination of services. If we look to the Virgo report, so the assessment on the healthcare system, accessibility and coordination of services. So, using some of the dollars that we already have, the resources we already have, and just working on better coordinating the services that already exist, I think we'll be able to help so many more people. Peer Connections Manitoba, like our clinical integration piece, we're working alongside as an adjunct to the clinical environment, and it's a beautiful relationship. You know, I'm with Robyn when she says, I'm not anti or pro treatment or medication, but it's a wonderful thing when it's integrated, like an integrative model. And I won't get into my personal story, but I made a full recovery because of an integrative health practitioner that I went to see in the US. So, you know, fully agree. And that integrated approach is really what's super effective.
Yeah. Well, okay, Kirsten, then I want you to chime in because you've had your own personal experience where you had to go out of province, right, for help, and found help, right, in the U.S. just like Sean did. Why are there's such discrepancies? Is it because they have a privatized healthcare system and we have Medicare, or is it just a train of thought?
Yeah, you know, my head goes to when Sean was saying how in the past several years and not so several, there's a lot more awareness around what happens with an individual when they are faced with a mental health challenge or crisis. And as society and as us as a whole, especially here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, are starting to recognize and have that conversation about the impact of what that has on an individual. I really believe the conversation needs to start about, let's talk about the impact that has on the family supporting that individual. And we're a little behind on that, I think, than what's happening outside of our province, perhaps in other provinces and going into the States. So what society is not talking about and not quite yet recognizing, unless you've absolutely walked in those shoes, is yes, an individual that is facing a challenge regarding their mental health has adversity and incredible challenges ahead of them, and their life is turned upside down. Same goes for the family members that are supporting that individual. And if we think the services are scarce and hard to come by for the individual, they're almost nil for the family. And that's the conversation that I'm super passionate about having. Because the family member is the one who's taking them to services and options out there, but also supporting them when they leave those services. So in my case, like, yes, we absolutely left the province of Manitoba and the country to find a higher level of care because it really didn't exist, especially for my adolescent child at the time. I was really fortunate that Manitoba Health covered those services, but also the treatment facility that we did a lot of research and we decided to admit our child to was all around that parallel process and all around family support, and they gave us what we were lacking as far as supports and services, so the family could heal and the family could move together on this recovery journey. Really. I'm kind of rambling a little bit right now, but you know, I really believe that the next 5 years, I'm hoping, and I'm on a mission. I know Charlotte's with me, and I know Robyn's with me, to really start putting some highlight to, okay, let's keep talking about the individual, but let's start talking about the family.
Oh, and that is so true. And if you kind of look at it as a whole, I mean, there is the one person, right? But then there's so many people around it and around them. Like, let's talk too about, I guess, getting the right information. What is the right information, and how do we access it? You know, we've talked about your organization. How do people know about it, or, you know, like, what are the first steps? You identify that you are not well?
Yeah, it's, you know, I think the direction that I would go in terms of answering that question, there's an inherent shame and guilt that's associated when we're struggling mentally. So it's a tricky thing whereby it's a combination of really being able to share your story and having an organization to be able to promote and make people aware that they exist, and a willingness to reach out for help. So it's us trying, the way that we're approaching it is trying our best to meet people where they're at and being in the places where people are having those discussions. So, I don't have all the answers, but it's something that we wrestle with, every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do we do a better job of making people aware that this exists? And so, your social media, you do your web page and all of those pieces, but how do we get into the community, into people's lives? How do we get into those spaces to have those discussions with people? And then going back to a theme that we were talking about earlier, how do we normalize that experience to encourage people to have those uncomfortable conversations? Great discussion. I don't have all the answers.
I know.
But a team of people that work to try and make it happen.
Well, and I mean, these people here, I know, well, Robyn, let's hear you, but I think I'm going to first go to Charlotte, okay? How do we? Or is it like through word of mouth? It's through people that we know. It's, like Winnipeg is 5 degrees of separation.
Well, you know what, but then you have that part that Sean was just talking about, that shame and blame and guilt, and so they don't want to open up and ask, because some people are still going underground. They don't want to talk about their struggles, or the family doesn't want to talk about what's going on within the family. And then often you don't hear about it until, they're in that crisis stage, because they just were hoping that it might go away, and then it doesn't. And that's where, I can feel Sean's frustration, because often when families or an individual reaches out, they're in that place where I need you to see you today. And, Sean's like, I can't, but I can see you in 2 weeks, or, whatever that looks like. So that's where normalizing the conversation around mental health, and when families I know in our case with what Kirsten and I, when we work with families, a lot of schools, when a child starts to struggle, they'll introduce the family to us in hopes that they'll start to have conversations earlier on, before it gets to that, oh my, it's like out of control, or whatever that looks like, their anxiety is out of control and high. I can't talk enough about the support for the family and the silos that are created in our province around, a lot of the organizations don't talk or share. I know Peer Connections Manitoba is really working to try to get everybody to start talking to each other of what services are available, because right now with the families we are talking with, most of them don't know what's out there, and that's really, really hard to navigate. And the doctors and the clinicians don't know what's all out there, which is really unfortunate too. So it's actually while we were talking, I was just on 311 to see what's listed for mental health services, because that's where people start. They Google, they look, and then last resort often is reaching out to friends and family who can help.
Well, I think we just need to get the word out more, because this is really crucial, right? To be proactive before it does escalate. So now, talking about the world that we're in now, Sean and I previously were talking about addictions too, and the state that pandemic, post-pandemic isolation has increased our levels of mental health. Robyn, I guess, yeah, I mean, dealing with these heightened fears, these heightened anxieties, tips on how to diffuse it.
Well, I have to say, last year when all of this shook down, I said we should all find someone who's been living with anxiety for the last 20, 30 years and say to them, how do you do it? And like a friend of mine went, I've been preparing for this moment my whole life. And she said, nothing's as bad as I ever imagined. I think for me, it's what can I control? And the reality is, I think I said this, on the Hue at one point, like we think we have control over all this stuff in our lives, and the only thing we have control over is us. Right? We walk out the door, we don't have control over anyone else. We don't have control over what the rest of the world's doing. We don't have control over if we have a partner or if there's kids, but we have this thought that we do. So one, step back and go, I only have control over me in this moment. For me, one of the things that I do, or I try to do, because I was waiting for Sytnyk and Kirsten to laugh at me, is try and take some breaks where I get overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed the other day and I cried to my great friends here. And then I went, okay, just breathe, take a step back, take a few moments off. The world's not going to fall apart, and then start again. And I think that's all we can do, right? Find the thing that soothes our soul in those moments. And that's different for everyone. For some people, that might be journaling, not my thing, right? Someone else, it might be yoga. Again, I am not a pretzel. I'm not good at that. But I like to do some exercise. I like to walk the dog. I like to watch stupid TV. So if people can find what it is for them, I know Sean's a music man, right? He'll go off and do his music and stuff. And yeah, like, do I have the answers? No. Do I know that we are actually all in this together? And if we start talking, if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, then someone else will be vulnerable, and we'll work out, actually, many of us have these feelings. And then we can share how each of us has got through it. That's my belief. That's why I stand up and go, hello, I'm the mentally crazy person. Yes, I made a career out of it. I've traveled the world. But I do it not for someone to say, oh, there's Robyn Priest. I do it because I want people to go, there's a safe space to have a vulnerable, brave conversation. And if we all stood up and do that, imagine how cool the world could be.
Wow. We always count on you, Robyn, to say something so profound. Okay, so, hey, that's solved, right,
That's
Sean?
a wrap, right?
That's
Yeah,
a wrap.
yeah.
That's a wrap. No. Okay, so I want to go around, though. Lastly, Sunday is World Mental Health Day. We actually had a really good conversation just on the end, or September 30th. For the first time, it was Truth and Reconciliation Day, not a holiday, not anything like that, but definitely a day to reflect. I also think this day, too, is something to reflect on, and how we can help, how we can change, how we can get the word out and to talk more. I'll go with you, Sean, because you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the most important aspects of World Mental Health Day is to recognize the difference between mental illness and mental health. Mental health is something that we all have. Mental health affects how we think, act, and feel. So it's pervasive throughout our entire lives. And I think what the important piece to remember is that the quality of our life really depends largely on the quality of our mental health, and that it's not something scary to talk about. There's things that we can all do every single day to improve our mental health. So I think that when we talk about World Mental Health Day, it's having that recognition that this is something that we all have, and there are things that we can do, and it's different for everybody, but we can improve it.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Kirsten?
Well, I encourage family members to have conversations with close, trusted friends and support services I know in my family story, I was very, very quiet with what was happening within my home and my family. And I did that in an attempt because I felt I was protecting my family, especially my child. But to be honest, when I met Charlotte, she was kind of my first connection to that family peer support, where I actually met somebody who knew my world, was walking a little further ahead of me and made it through. And not only that, she kind of looked like she had it together. And I thought I was like the only one on this planet that was living what I was living. So that connection, that peer connection where somebody shared that experience, um, like in my family story, that was huge for me as a family member that was really, really struggling. So I encourage people not to be afraid to respectfully speak of what's going on, and to let go of the shame and the blame, and to find that trusted resource, and just share what's going on with you. And they don't realize it at the time, but for those family members, that support is really important. And they're going to feel like I felt like the world was lifted off my shoulders when I found Charlotte, and I could start talking honestly about my reality. And that's what I would like family members to do this week.
Oh, thanks so much, Kirsten. Charlotte.
Oh, you know what? Now we'll talk a little bit more about the family, and we talk a lot about, Kristen and I, with the families we work with, you know, what the mental health looks like of the family and what the mental health looks like for each individual in the family. And often it looks a little different to each member of the family. So I encourage families to start having conversations just within their family. Hey, what does this mental health look like to you? And be open to allow space for a non-judgmental conversation, because I know when I first started having this conversation with my children, and listening to what that they had to say, because their interpretation was a little bit different to mine. And I think when you allow that safe space, non-judgmental space within your family to have these kind of conversations, you're going to see some real growth in your entire family's mental health story.
Oh. And Robyn.
Well, I have some respectful challenges for this time. One is, let's all check our egos at the door, and let's actually collaborate together, work together to develop an amazing system of supports for people. So that's for all the providers, government departments, all of us who are saying we're supporting people. The other respectful challenge is, don't wait for a World Mental Health Day or an awareness week.
Yep.
I put it on my page on the 30th. Like a day of truth and reconciliation. That sounds great. But why don't we walk the talk and be the truth and listen every day and talk about it every day? And so my thing about this whole week and Sunday is, let's stop waiting for this week and this day, and let's talk every day about mental health and how we support each other and how we support ourselves.
And boom, drop the mic. It all rings so true. And I think that everyone out there, just start the conversation. Peer Connections Manitoba is here. Robyn Priest, Live Your Truth, and All In Family Peer Support is here. There's so many places that you can go to, and I just want to thank you, Sean, Charlotte, Kirsten, Robyn. The world is all a little bit of a better place with all of you here. Just know that, because you know your success stories, and so that is why your work is going to continue, and Hue just wants to be here to promote it and to share your successes and share. So thank you so much. And everybody, every day is World Mental Health Day. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.